It's time for the Daily Planet podcast show. So sit back, relax, and give us a go. Scott and Matt and maybe a guest have undertaken an epic pod quest. We're gonna ramble on about movies and books and television and directors and film festivals and this really long list of stuff that I know nothing about, but they gave it to me and they really wanted me to read through it. And that's all I can really say about it, but it's gonna be great. Okay, start the show.
Hello, and welcome to the Daily Planet podcast, your weekly podcast for all things movies, TV, books, and anything else we feel like talking about. My name is Scott Daly, editor-in-chief of DailyPlanetFilms.com, and I'm joined as always by my co-host and co-editor, Matt Freeman. Matt, how are you this week?
I'm doing great this week, Scott, and I'm looking forward to discussing television.
And let's not forget I'm here.
We were about to do that, Michael.
Yeah, I couldn't wait that long.
Joining us for an unprecedented second time in a row is Michael Grubb. Hello, Michael.
Oh, hello.
You were just so
I'm here again.
You were just so good last week that we decided we had to have you back.
Thank you. You wouldn't let me do the intro this time, though.
Well, I will never let you do that again. So
I'll come up with something juicy next week.
That's not.
I got some fresh ideas for this podcast.
That's good. Okay. You're off the show.
Yeah, I've been thinking we need to rotate out guests. I think,
I think that's a good idea.
Oh.
So, like Matt said, Michael, we're here to talk about television. Because
I've watched that before.
Because in my intro that I'm sure you listened to, I say we talk about movies, TV, and books. And we talk about movies and TV or books on this podcast a lot, but we don't talk about TV that much.
That's true. I've noticed an absence of TV on this podcast.
We had that one episode where Matt and I talked about how Lost made us angry, and that was basically all the TV we've talked about. So we're going to talk about TV, and we're not going to be.
Well, gosh darn it, it's about time.
we're
diggity.
We're not even going to be specific. We're not talking about a specific TV show. We're talking about television.
Talking about all the TV.
All of it.
All of it.
All of it. All the TV that has ever existed.
All 250 glorious years of TV.
That's not
1 hour.
No, that's not. It's more like 50, 60 years.
Yeah, well, let's move along.
All right. Before we move into our main topic, though, we want to cover some quick news. There's not too much to talk about this week, but the one thing I wanted to talk about, because here on this podcast, we make sure we have every effort to make fun of Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. That movie came out today. It's out as we are speaking.
And it looks like our premature criticism of it was entirely accurate.
It does. It has a
Have you seen it yet?
It has a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah. I believe Batman Forever with Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones is actually a higher rated movie than this movie.
I think so.
I almost want to say The Last Witch Hunter starring Vin Diesel is about that level.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's believable.
You know, there's another movie coming out this week.
And I might be wrong about that.
There's another movie coming out this week called My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. And that is at a very comparable level to Batman v Superman, the $250 million production.
That's a shame. I really like the first Big Fat Greek Wedding movie.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, how do you screw this up though? I mean, I think if they had just shown just like a superhero battle for 2 hours, it would have been rated higher than that. I mean, they must have really just plowed this thing into the ground on purpose.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it. I haven't seen the movie yet. I will say that. I've read a lot of reviews. I've read a lot of spoiler. I basically know the entire plot of this movie, but I haven't seen it. It's bad. Like, just everything that I read, it's not good.
I kind of regret promising that I'd watch it this weekend.
Well, I kind of want to see it, though. Like, I'm fascinated by this movie, and that's why we're going to talk about it next week. But I can't wait. I don't know how they screw it up so much. The one thing that I've read that I think I'm going to fully agree with based on our Man of Steel conversations is that Zack Snyder not only doesn't understand the character of Superman, he might just actively hate the character.
I saw a thing because I was watching Man of Steel briefly today. It was on television, and they like interrupted it with kind of like previews of the new movie, and it had like Zack Snyder talking over footage, and he's like, "Yeah, we spent a lot of time like on the action scenes and like making sure the action scenes were good and the action scenes, and there's some action in the movie." And that's basically all he was talking about. And based on like his previous movies, like 300, which I just found tedious. But some people appreciated the stylistic aspects of it, which there were. I feel like this movie is going to be kind of the same, only probably less stylistic.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll find out this weekend, but I think I'm ready to say if I don't like this movie, which I think I'm not going to. I think I'm almost ready to say that Zack Snyder is not a very good filmmaker, and I've been rooting for him because I do think like I like 300 more than you. I think it was visually impressive, but that's really all his movies have going for them. They're visually beautiful, and there's really nothing else there. I know, Matt, I think you like Watchmen more than I do.
I like Watchmen quite a bit, but I probably like it for the story mainly, and I actually like 300, except then I get bored and walk out of the room at certain points. I was very interested to learn this week from one of my high school friends that Snyder wanted to do the Fountainhead, which when I first heard it, I was like, that's really interesting because that story only works with the sort of hyper reality and like a real stylistic aesthetic. It wouldn't work at all in a realistic aesthetic, and I think that he could actually bring something to it visually. But then it was pointed out to me that he really couldn't carry the movie because you have to carry the actual plot and you have to convey the character, dialogue, scenes, and things like this. And he's not even competent at that kind of thing. So
I'm imagining a lot of shots of what's his face, main character, just like
Rourke
staring out of windows with like a billowing like coat.
So much slow motion.
I was right. We were saying him slow motion with his shirt off, like pounding in bolts with a red hot hammer or something, and sparks flying behind him.
But I think Fountainhead. I think you're right. It fits his aesthetic style at least, and it just so funny to me that like this is the person they've entrusted. DC and Warner Brothers have entrusted to launch their entire cinematic universe. A guy who really, I don't think he likes superheroes. I think he's much more interested in telling stories that deconstruct and examine them, which is cool, but not if you're trying to launch like a multi-film huge thing about all your superheroes in your entire line of comic books. Like, I don't know why he was the guy. I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, speaking of deconstructing superhero.
Wait, were you gonna follow?
That was the segue. That was the segue. Yeah, I mean, one of you was supposed to chime in with like heroes or something.
It's
well,
we have one more news item, Michael.
Oh God, I jumped the gun. I apologize. That's unprofessional.
You can't do unprepared segues.
All right, bring up the news item quick.
The news item is that Indiana Jones 5 is a movie that is happening.
Oh yeah,
with Harrison Ford attached, with Steven Spielberg attached, with the same writer that wrote Crystal Skull attached.
It's sad that in Harrison Ford's old age, they managed to trick him into making this movie.
Here's my thought. Harrison Ford is taking all these roles and then demanding that they kill off his character in the movie just so people will leave him alone and stop asking him to be in more movies.
That's a brilliant strategy.
That's true. Interesting. Yeah, he's just gonna tie up all the loose ends and be able to retire without being bothered.
Yeah. And also get a crap ton of money while he's doing it. Yeah, I mean, so the parts where Harrison Ford had to be physical in the Star Wars movie was the worst part of it, because he's old and slower and it just doesn't work. And Indiana Jones requires a lot of physicality, and I don't know.
Well, he did that other movie recently of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, and it was.
But do you
awful.
think they're going to hand it over to Shia LaBeouf now?
No, Shia LaBeouf will not be in this movie. I would put money on that. They will
Really?
write him out. Yeah, no.
Shia LaBeouf is all their age these days.
Not for that. I don't think he'd do it.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd do it
He-
if they asked him to. You should
Maybe,
when
yeah.
he did his whole watch himself or have people watch his movies. The facial expressions he made while watching Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're gonna do. I think they need to introduce a new character to it, but they've said that Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones, so they're not gonna like hire someone else to play the character. Like it was rumored. Like I think there was all those Chris Pratt rumors back when last year when Jurassic World came out and everyone loved him. But I don't know. It's a bad idea. I think it's not gonna have Lucas involved, but
the Crystal Skull was not successful, so it seems kind of desperate.
Yeah.
It dovetails with what we were just talking about with the Superman thing, where they're just sort of cynically milking a franchise at this point, well past the point of rationality, because Indiana Jones is, he's the archaeologist adventurer, like sort of swashbuckling guy, and there have been other successful movies about the archaeologist adventurer swashbuckling guy, like The Mummy, for example, which I actually like as a movie. Like The Mummy stands alone by itself, and in point of fact, they started a whole Mummy franchise from The Mummy, and Brendan Fraser was a great lead for that. But why try to bring back Indiana Jones, and especially why try to bring it back with Harrison Ford when you've lost all the elements that made it actually work? It's like you're not going to make The Mummy 7 with a 6-year-old Brendan Fraser, like that. That's laughable, but it's like so is this. So is making an old Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
it's just what they do though, because it's safe and anyone will watch. Like everyone is expecting the movie to be bad, but they'll be like, "But I'll see it anyway because it's Indiana Jones and I like Harrison Ford."
Yeah, you're absolutely.
And that's
right.
what I mean by.
Yeah.
I mean that's what I mean by it being cynical, and it's gonna be bad, and it's gonna be like a stain on the franchise, and I guess they know they're gonna make money, so they don't care, but it's just irritating.
Remember that Young Indiana Jones TV show?
Yeah, that went on for quite a while, actually.
Yeah, and it was a TV show.
Oh, you were doing.
We should bring back that guy.
Michael was trying to do a segue again.
Was it? Wait, who was it? Was it River Phoenix? No, he was in the Glass Crusade. Who was someone? Ryan Gosling? No. Who was young Indiana Jones?
I have no idea. I don't remember at all.
No.
We'll have to Google that. But not right now, because we are going to transition to talking about television.
Whoa.
So, TV is in a weird place right now. I don't know how much TV you guys watch. I watch a fair amount of it. I really like watching a bunch of different shows. There's a whole bunch of shows on right now that I really love. But TV's in a place where there's so much to pick from now. So many channels are producing their own original content, and then we have all these streaming services that are producing their own original content. That's like, I think you could pick anything that you like, and there's a TV show for you out there right now, because there's just so much.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about television right now? Do you think that the overall quality has gone up?
I think on the streaming services like Netflix and Amazon, they have kind of saved it. The quality has gone up by producing these like 10-ish or so episode series. I think the standard like 26 episode series of normal television is kind of fading away. Like they've been kind of acknowledged as formulaic, and there's always I guess they always have a demographic for it, but I think the real quality is in the streaming shows these days.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's funny because there's all these streaming shows, Netflix, Amazon, even HBO to a certain extent, and they don't care about any of the things that old network television cared about. Like ratings to Netflix is not something they care about. They know how many people watch, like Daredevil came out last week, and they know how many people watched episodes of Daredevil last week. But they don't publish that. They don't care about it. That's not what they're trying for. They care about subscription numbers, and that's all they care about. and they want to cultivate a library that's so deep that no one ever wants to unsubscribe from their service because there's always something on there that's going to watch. So they don't care if 2 million people or whatever watched Daredevil last week. They care that in 5 years, someone could still get on there and say, "Oh, Daredevil!" Like that's their goal.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting.
Yeah,
because...
especially with they're doing all the superheroes now, all the Marvel superheroes, right?
Yeah.
Or the kind of secondary ones, and that already has a huge fan base. So they've been pretty clever in acquiring the rights to those characters.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that's cool is I think there's so much TV out there that I don't think like shows have to try to cater to a wide audience anymore. I think a show can construct itself to cater to a very specific audience and be successful in that, because there are people that want that, and there's not that expectation of you need to pull in a huge number of demographics for your show to be successful. And I think that's really cool.
That's a really good point. Recently, there's been some examples of that. I think if you guys watched Mr. Robot, it came out last year, which is kind of I don't think it's more of a sort of paranoid sci-fi kind of show, but it hit big with a very particular demographic.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, unfortunately. It's on my list.
Yeah, I've heard that would be my demographic, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
you would like it, yeah.
Well, and so it's getting to a point, and like I said, I watch a lot of TV, and I follow up on news and stuff, so I'm always aware. Like, I knew about Mr. Robot and how the critics were liking that, and I know about all these different shows that I know I would like, but I don't have time for it all anymore. And so it's really gotten to the point where, to me, if a show is not excellent, I don't have time for it, and I'm just not going to watch it. Like, so just a show being good isn't enough anymore. I need to be totally drawn into it.
It's good. It's an optimistic view of the television present and near future.
Yeah. I think it's a really exciting time for TV, and I think that's why we're seeing the quality of actors kind of flock to it. There's just something to being able to tell a long form story like this that is really hitting off with people. And
I think younger people too just don't want to sit down and watch TV on someone else's terms. I mean, people want to watch TV like on a bus ride or whatever on their phone when they want to watch it, and that's another reason.
Yeah.
I mean, and on that note, like a 50-minute episode of something is a lot more consumable than a 2.5-hour movie. Like in my situation, I'm frequently like paging through Netflix looking at movies, and I'm just like, well, I'm not going to be able to finish any of these movies, so why bother? Because I'm going to have to go to bed before the movie ends. And with the TV show, you can watch one episode and then assess, so do I have time for a second episode during my binge or whatever I'm doing. I found that makes it a lot more feasible, I guess.
I think a lot of people, even if they don't have time issues, feel the same way you do, and just like everyone's lives moves kind of so quickly now. No one wants to commit to like a whole movie. They just want to sit down and watch like a TV episode and then decide after that one's done if they want to watch another.
Absolutely. And I'm actually to the point where the 30-minute comedy series, like dramedy type shows, I'm really enjoying right now because that's such a low level of commitment. There's 2 on HBO right now, both Girls and Togetherness. They're not like super great, but they're enjoyable and they're quick. Actually, Girls this season has been, I think, the best the show's ever been. But they're just like, there's all these 30. There was one last year that I actually wrote about called Catastrophe, which was a Amazon series that like was like 10 episodes and they were 30 minutes each, and it's just like that's so much lower time commitment than anything else. And
yeah,
and even
I feel like
go ahead. I was going to say, to push it to another extreme, there's a whole nother level of this, which is a lot of people will watch shows on YouTube now, which are like 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, most.
Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah.
I I feel like TV and online delivery systems are making those things get both shorter and tighter, and at the same time, like the big blockbuster movies are actually getting longer and slower. So it's actually hitting us from both directions, because like all these superhero movies that we talk about, they're so long, like they're over 2 hours, and they have these really slow beginnings, and sometimes you're just like, I want to watch something and I want it to like start entertaining me immediately. And like you said, like these YouTube shows that are 10 minutes, you know you're going to be thoroughly entertained because it's only 10 minutes long, so they have to cram it all in. And Scott's like half-hour comedies, those are some of the best, like pace, like snappiest from the first shot. You know, you got the comedy going, and then the like 1 hour shows, like the kind of the what's the word that we use, the big shows like Breaking Bad and
Right.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, just the
those
dramas,
yeah, the dramas, those are at least, like, you're going to have a lot of exciting things happen within the hour, or it's like a terrible
Well,
episode. Like
They're
yeah.
definitely getting denser, like we talked about with like the streaming ones being generally shorter and having more like significant episodes rather than just like, monster of the day episodes or whatever.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's funny that, like, I think the biggest, and Michael, you touched on this a little bit, the biggest signal changer in this was allowing shows to break away from the 22 episode required season. I mean, even something like Game of Thrones, which is a show that has so much time to cover, like these are massive books, thousands of pages. If they had to operate in a 22 episode a season structure, there would be so much filler in those. I mean, there'd be shows where nothing really happens, and it's just like, yeah, your monster of the week type of thing. And we are back. We had a little connectivity issue there, and hopefully that will not happen again. You guys still there?
Yes.
We're here.
Okay, awesome. So we were talking about the landscape of TV and how it's changing, and how I think we all kind of agree for the good, and we're all enjoying the state of TV as it is right now. So let's talk about TV as it is right now. Do you guys have shows that you're currently watching? Current shows or recent shows? Michael, do you have anything?
Yeah, a couple come to mind, and they're actually like all streaming shows. I've watched recently The Man in the High Castle, which I enjoyed a lot.
Did you? Yeah, I've heard really good things about that one. I just haven't had time.
I think it's a very unique story. Like the feel of it, because what it's about is an alternate history where the Allies lost World War II, and it was based on a book by
Philip K. Dick.
Philip K. Dick, thank you. And it's really good, and I think it would have disturbed people a lot. And the book probably did disturb people a lot, but this show more, like 50 years ago, closer to the time of World War II ending, because it would just be like so disturbing to see a world where like the Nazis and Japanese won and have like occupied the United States. But it's really cool. They didn't really finish it, I don't think. They kind of left the end open, of the season open, without really resolving like what was going on that season, which I didn't like so much. But I still enjoyed everything that happened.
That's cool. I really like what Amazon is doing. Amazon, how they approach pilots is like way different from how anyone else is doing it. They basically shoot one episode and then they upload it, and if the episode gets enough views, then they produce more of the show. And that makes sense, but
Yeah,
no one else
makes
has really
sense.
done it that way. And they've produced some pretty great shows. There's I know that one is supposed to be really good. The Catastrophe one I was talking about. There was the transgender one. I can't remember what the name of it was. And then there was that one
Was Mr. Robot an Amazon show, or is it just streaming on Amazon?
No, that was USA. Actually.
Oh, okay. No, I'm surprised. USA usually does like really light material.
Yeah, I mean, like they had their whole characters welcome thing. I think USA did all of like the murder mystery shows, like the Psych and Monk, and that was like their their bread and butter.
Yeah.
Those kind of like I feel like you could always tell a USO show or USA show just by looking at it. Like you wouldn't even have to know what channel you were on.
Right. This one doesn't really feel like that, so they must be expanding.
Right. Anything else that you're watching?
I also I watched Better Call Saul last season every week and really liked it. I did not actually finish Breaking Bad because I just couldn't get into it. I thought it moved too slow. But even without having watched that, I thought Better Call Saul was really well done. And I have not started this season yet. I know they're in the middle of this season, or maybe it's ended by now. But I'm going to watch it.
It's not quite over yet, but yeah, you need to watch it. It's really good. It's just you're right. It's just so well made.
Yeah, it's very good. The characters, I think, are just really appealing and well conveyed.
Yeah, and it's the show that I think back what happened over the course of an episode, and it really nothing, not huge character moments happen. It's not it's not a super fast show, and it's not trying to be super fast. It's just very methodical in its pace, and lets all these character moments really stick with you, and have their effect.
I don't know if I can even fully describe why it's effective. The first episode did have a pretty good cliffhanger, but after that, I can't. I wouldn't say it's really suspenseful, but you're just so much rooting for the main character, and he's just kind of always in a bad situation, and I guess that kind of moves the show along, where you're kind of rooting for him to get out of his situations.
Which is especially crazy, and I know you didn't finish Breaking Bad, but I know where this character ends. I've seen the end of Breaking Bad. I know what happens to him, and it's still the thing is, I know he's not going to die, and I know who he becomes. But just watching his journey and what he's going through is just fascinating. Matt, I don't think you've watched this one yet.
No, it's definitely on my list. It's almost one of those things where I'm yeah, I know when I start this, I'm just going to binge it insanely. So I'm going to wait until I feel comfortable in doing that.
I actually really appreciated last season when I was watching it as it was released, that it was released once a week for that reason. Because otherwise I'll just watch it all in one weekend, and then it doesn't stick with me as much. But because I was watching it over a longer period of time, it kind of enjoyed it more, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as I like binging TV, I think there is something to be said for the traditional once a week model. In for that exact point, it allows you to each individual episode to stand by itself, and for you to be able to process and think about it. And that's a show that I think definitely benefits from that for sure. But it is on Netflix if you want to binge it, Matt.
Yeah, well, I will.
I also just finished the first season of. I'm pretty late to this game, but House of Cards. And I don't know what your guys' opinion is of House of Cards. I didn't think it quite lived up to the hype.
Yeah, I watched it and I sort of felt ill and dirty and didn't feel like watching anymore.
I know what you mean, because the characters are just so unlikable that you don't really have someone you kind of root for Kevin Spacey just because he's talking at you, but you also aren't.
Well, it's this weird.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, that's because you can make Kevin Spacey a bad guy protagonist, and that's fine. But then you kind of have to have other characters who you actually like and root for. But you have to have someone who you like, and you only like him in sort of a kind of the way you like Hannibal Lecter, in that he's just really evocative.
He's taking advantage of that other congressman, and blackmailing him because of his drug past and so forth. Yeah. But you don't like that person either, because he also makes a series of really stupid decisions that you can't really relate to.
Yeah.
It's this weird Shakespearean thing where it's trying to be this kind of Shakespearean tale, but with Macbeth, I think the cool thing about that play was that you liked Macbeth at first, and then you saw him destroy himself. I think Kevin Spacey's character is just always bad. There's never that moment of he was good and then was corrupted, or his greed overtook him, and he just was always playing this game and was always terrible. So yeah, it's kind of hard to root for him, even though you still kind of are. I never.
And I feel like a lot of like an anti-hero a lot of the time needs to have like one principle or something that he holds, that he like really sticks to, for like, even though he's like breaking all the other ones that society has. But whenever it seems like a character has that in House of Cards, they break that as well. Like the guy who was addicted to drugs, you kind of think that he has a meaningful relationship with his aide at one point, but then he just kind of like, with no real like reason behind it, sleeps with a random prostitute who was set up for him to sleep with, and you just like, oh, and and this kind of happens over and over, and you just are kind of left feeling sick, like Matt said, and you don't really care.
Yeah,
right. I didn't really care what happened to anyone, so I didn't watch the second season.
Especially since if you talk to people that work in politics, how accurate some of the dealings and stuff is to what actually goes on.
I'm sure it is, but the difference between fiction and fact is that fiction has to be believable. And so that's what I think about House of Cards.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch? To continue talking about myself.
No.
That Orange is the New Black. Did you guys watch that one?
I do. That's one I've kind of started to lose interest in, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. I like the first season was appealing in some ways, but I don't know where it's going anymore. And maybe it suffers from the House of Cards syndrome a little bit too, where you like don't really know what Piper stands for anymore. She's just kind of annoying and wishy-washy.
Yeah, and like it's one of those shows that I think it needs to be unafraid of ending. I think they've already renewed it for 2 more seasons, and it's like she was supposed to be in like an 18-month prison sentence, and it's going to be 5 years worth of TV time.
Yeah.
It just gets to a point where it's like, I mean, these characters have all been interesting. They've all undergone different stuff, and I'm sure they can invent new interesting stuff for them to go through, but it just starts to wane on you a little bit. And the last season, I was definitely just, and it wasn't like I couldn't pinpoint a specific reason why I didn't like it. I was just overall just less interested in the world.
Yeah, it just seemed like more of the same. It didn't seem like anything was developing that you were caught up in.
Yeah.
I will say an example of a TV show, of a more standard TV show, because all of these have been basically online, that I remember liking quite a bit is the first season of Prison Break. Did you guys see that back in the day?
I never watched that one. But I never understood how that could be a whole show.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The great thing about Prison Break is that it had an extremely clear story its first season, because there's this guy whose brother has been sentenced to death, basically. He's in prison and he's been sentenced to death. And this guy commits some crime on purpose to get into the same prison as his brother so that he can break him out and save him. And he's made a bunch of plans that you don't know about, and they're kind of revealed episode by episode. But it has an extremely clear goal to the end, and many things go wrong along the way. Like the guy's death sentence date gets moved up, or like parts of the plan don't work because something about the prison has changed. And I think more shows need to have a really clear narrative, because Prison Break was created not thinking about what would happen in any of the other seasons, which is why it didn't work for any of the other seasons. Mm-hmm. But the first season was excellent because it had like a clear point, and most TV shows aren't. They're just trying to be as open-ended as possible.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about traditional TV is you write your pilot. Your pilot kind of sets up the world and your characters, and then you get picked up, and then suddenly you have to come up with a plot or series of events that moves things forward but doesn't close things off. And I think, and really honestly, and I know you never got into Breaking Bad, but that's something I really respected about that show, is when it saw that it was time for the story to come to an end, it did it, and it didn't let AMC would have kept that show running for 100 years if they could.
Right.
But the showrunner wanted to end the show. He felt that it was time. They had told the story they wanted to tell, and that, I think that's important, because then there's things happen like, and I don't want to talk too much about Lost because we did that already, but I think Lost was a show that's very much old guard TV that kept going because it was so popular, and the network didn't want it to stop.
I think the reason it was appealing to begin with is because it seemed like it had a lot more of a purpose. It seemed like it had an ending.
Yeah, that's true.
But they just kept dangling it in front of you, and you never got any closer to it. And when they gave it to you, it was just completely made up.
Yeah. So, Matt, are you watching anything current?
It's interesting. The things that I end up watching are like really weird nonfiction, like I don't even know the names of these things, but they're always like little like documentary TV shows, like the one about like how we got here, where it's like the technology that led to the present day, and then there's this one that we're watching now that's like a magician who goes around and does all this like social engineering stuff. I don't even remember what that's called. It's just weird. I guess that's kind of like the Venn diagram of where my wife's interests and my interests overlap. Happens to include these weird nonfiction things that are really like quick.
Was that magician Darren Brown?
I'm not even sure. I pay about 30% attention, which is another reason why I choose these things, not something I have to pay attention to. So it's interesting because I don't even think of these as like TV shows. And they're sort of not in the sense that we're talking about TV shows, but these are the things that I'm consuming as TV nowadays. Not really narrative that much, and I guess the only other thing that I watch is Game of Thrones, which I can say that I watch even though it only airs for a few months a year.
1 month from today, I think. I think that's right.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what happens this year. Although I felt like last season was not very tight.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about just the fact that, like we were just talking about, it's all the incentives are pushing them, pushing all people who have TV shows to stretch things out and make more TV, more seasons, and they supposedly know where the story is supposed to go according to Martin, but that doesn't mean they can't drag their feet doing it and insert all kinds of filler arcs and just really bog things down. So I hope that they set themselves a fast pace, kind of like the book is doing, and kind of and definitely like Lost did. I love Breaking Bad, but you could even make an argument that Breaking Bad sort of like ran past home base and then circled back around. I'm afraid that
a little bit. I really want to rewatch Breaking Bad.
Yeah, me too. But I think we all love Game of Thrones, and I think we're all pretty. I think that's like a great example of the difference between what we think of as television nowadays and what it used to be. Because used to be the best TV show was X-Files, and it's like
well, but the thing about Game of Thrones that's so crazy to me is, as much as TV has changed, the Game of Thrones is still really an event show. It's still a show that, for the most part, people get together or people sit down in front of their TV and watch it almost live, because it's like everyone's going to be talking about it. They're going to get spoiled on the things that happen. So it's still it's still very much, and I do too. I think that's the only show I watch live now, is Game of Thrones, because I want to watch it as soon as it starts.
Yeah, same with me and my friends back in the UK. But could we talk about why that is? Because it doesn't seem at first glance like Game of Thrones would be broadly appealing. Like, a lot of people are turned off by the fantasy genre. It's quite violent, which turns some people off as well. I mean, why does everyone like Game of Thrones so much?
I just think the characters are so good. I mean, I really think that's what it is. I think it hooks you with these really complicated, interesting characters, and your general viewer isn't even really paying attention to that. They just know that they like it. But the storylines and the things that happen to these characters interest people. And I just think the fact that the show is so well made, that like the direction is fantastic, the sets are incredible. Even the CG work is getting really great. Like last year with the whole hard home battle was just out of this world incredible. Like movie quality CG in the show. And I don't know. I just think there's something that hits a nerve with people on that. I keep worrying that the more magic-y it gets, the more people it's going to turn off. But that hasn't happened. I think everyone's just along for the ride now.
Yeah, I think they've already been sucked in. And I don't think that's actually as big of a turnoff as it used to be. I mean, look at all the superhero movies that are popular with adults these days.
Yeah,
it probably wouldn't have been, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think the books were just extremely well written with this exact type of delivery method in mind, where you have all these characters, and almost every character who they bother to name in the show has a real arc. And even like Sir Davos, who you don't even like remember when you're thinking about the show, he has a fairly intricate like story actually. And all the characters are very consistent, and you just kind of get sucked in.
Yeah, I kind of want to somehow be able to watch it without having read the books first, because a lot of times all I can think is like, oh, the books did that part way better. Like I'm one of those people who's like, oh, in the books this happened, that didn't happen in the books, and I wish I could watch it fresh to just see like all the things that they're presenting and the timing of presenting all of the things about the characters and so forth.
I can see that. And I think that's what's cool about this season is we kind of get to do that. But I mean, I liked the last season a lot more than both of those books. I thought it cut through the crap and got to the important parts of the story, where I thought Dance of Dragons, as much as I liked the writing, which I did, I just think it meandered around forever and didn't really accomplish anything. So I've actually enjoyed what they've done the last few years, and I think it's really cool that we get two versions of the story now are going to exist, and they'll be similar in some ways, but I'm sure they'll be different in others, and it's cool.
Yeah, I think one thing that the show did, the book had some kind of dead-end storylines. It basically like introduced new characters, and then kind of ended them. But the show has decided to get rid of a lot of those extra characters and just try to focus on all of the ones that you already know and love, and perhaps the storylines are woven in a bit better, where because really after the third book, Storm of Swords, it's kind of a sharp division. Like a lot of the characters that are dead, and a lot of new stories are starting.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. I remember getting actually kind of annoyed with the books when I'm like, more new characters. Like, just I want to know what's happening with Tyrion. I don't care about Quentin Martell.
Yeah. Especially
and
when his stupid storyline didn't go anywhere. God, what
exactly.
a biggest waste of pages.
There should be an unwritten rule in fiction, which is like, if you're more than halfway through the series or book, like, don't introduce new main characters.
Yeah, absolutely. You can introduce new characters, sure, but they shouldn't be main characters central to your story. I agree.
Yeah.
And it seems like in this next book, we're still going to get a bunch of new characters, so he's not going to stop. But hopefully the show doesn't do that. But yeah. So.
What about you, Scott?
I've talked about. I watched so many things. I've talked about the OJ show on here before, but that really is, to me, the best show on television right now. I absolutely love it. It's the most enjoyable hour of television every week is sitting down and watching that show. So much so that when...
So I haven't heard anything about this. Is this like a fictional show based around the OJ trials, or it's like a documentary, or what is it?
Dramatization of the events of the O.J. Simpson trial. So it is factual in some certain things and not factual in others, and dramatized a little bit. But it's interesting because the thing that they're really doing really well is getting across like how crazy and pop culture-y the trial was by like also doing these crazy pop culture things like in our current world, like they're playing off the fact that we specifically know who the Kardashians are now, and they're making the Robert Kardashian character bigger and more involved than he was in the actual trial. But it just works really well. He's played by David Schwimmer too, which is just it's just great. I don't know if Schwimmer's doing the best acting performance, but it's just really enjoyable. I think the Johnny Cochran, I can never remember the actor's name, but he is doing just incredible work. Like, he's gonna win Emmys for this for sure. And it's just like it's riveting because I mean I knew to a certain extent about the O.J. Simpson case, but not in any kind of super detail. I mean, I knew the glove thing. I knew that he was acquitted, but I didn't know any of the real details of it. I mean, there's all this stuff with the prosecutor and her hairdo, and how the tabloids were destroying her hair every week, and she tried to change it and only made it worse. And like, there's like this case was just such a pop culture event, and it's doing just a really good job of capturing that by becoming its own kind of pop cultural event.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's kind of meta. I mean, I remember that all happened when we were pretty young, but I still remember like all of the grown-ups talking about it.
Yeah. And Cuba Gooding Jr. as O.J. Simpson is very interesting, because he's not really trying to act like him, I don't think. It's just because he's like half his size and has a much higher voice and is not like him at all. But he's doing something, and it's just really interesting to watch.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, that's a show it's on FX. It's really great. The other shows that I really like, we mentioned, I mentioned Both Girls and Togetherness, those 30-minute dramedies on HBO. Togetherness is a show, it's in its second season now. It's a show that it's from the Duplass brothers, and it's kind of about upper middle class white family dealing with problems in their marriage. And also his best friend is a failed actor, and the wife's sister is someone who's struggling through life. So it's these white upper middle class people living in LA, and it just seems like on the surface like a show I would have hated, because I don't care about those things at all. But it keeps doing interesting things that I would not have expected. It takes the show to really interesting places. At the end of last season, a really crazy thing happened. That I don't want to spoil in case anyone hasn't seen it yet, but it's used that as a leaping point to tell a kind of completely different kind of story, and it's just, I mean, it's low time commitment, and it's just an enjoyable half hour of television that I did not expect.
Is that the show with Joey from Friends?
No.
Oh.
I don't know if he's
I don't know.
It has.
I don't know what show you're talking about then.
It has.
I think I've seen it on an airplane
Duplass
before, but I can't really recall.
Yeah.
What is this called again? My brain is just completely absent of any information about this.
Togetherness, and the reason why you can't remember it is because it's such a generic. Like, everything about the show seems like it would be a thing that I would not like, and yet I keep being surprised by what they do with it. And it's just, I enjoy it. I'm also watching The Walking Dead right now. I'm mostly watching The Walking Dead because my girlfriend loves that show. I've quit it like twice before, and I'm really ready to quit it again. I'm just kind of tired of it.
Yeah.
I think it's another classic case of we need to keep this show going. So the show is just kind of going in circles now. There's only so many times you can talk about if people are losing their humanity or not, and like,
right.
And
their show really frustrates me because I really like the concept of The Walking Dead. I like post-apocalyptic worlds, and I like zombie fictions, and but I think it's just the characters in The Walking Dead frustrate me, because all of the drama seems so manufactured, in a way very reminiscent of Lost. which I think we talked about the other day, where, this sort of thing where characters will just argue for no reason and then like knock each other out, like in really like dangerous situations for plot convenience in a way that like you wouldn't do in real life and could potentially kill someone. And it just really takes me out of the world.
Yeah, I just think it like the thing that the show keeps like slowly trying to move towards is the idea that it's not just about surviving, it's about like living. You can't abandon your humanity to survive,
Right.
because it's not worth it. But like every time it starts to move there, it like pulls back from it, because that would kind of be a resolution to the plot, and like that wouldn't work.
Right.
So if it ever has a character realize that, then they kill off that character. And they always do it in a way that punishes them for retaining their humanity. And it's just like, well, then what the fuck are you trying to say, show? Like, is it good to be a human or not? Because whenever someone acts with kindness towards someone else, they get screwed over. And
Well, yeah. And the core characters, though, have a lot of plot armor. And they're not going to die.
yeah,
Like,
they-
somewhat spoiler from like a season ago is when Grant was like surrounded by zombies and they were like swarming him, like, and then they ended the episode and didn't tell you whether he lived or not for like 2 episodes. It's like, he wasn't going to die.
you mean Glenn?
Yes, I mean Glenn.
But he probably is still gonna die. Like I don't know. Like I think like Rick, the main character, has plot armor. I think they're gonna kill off other characters as they see fit, and it's either gonna be important to the character's arc or not. And I don't know. I would have quit the show if not for Elisa's love of it. So, but
I
it's
mean,
still,
it has a lot of things going for it still. Like I think the cinematography in The Walking Dead is excellent. Like a lot of the establishing shots are really beautiful, like that they have before the credits and so forth. And they have like seeds of really like potentially interesting like mini stories in the episodes, but it just doesn't come together. It's too slow.
I completely agree with you on the cinematography, and I think that's the best thing about the fact that that show's gotten so popular is that the showrunners are allowing the DPs and the directors to really go crazy with style, and they're playing around with a lot of different things. There was, I think, the season premiere of this episode of this season was like half in black and white and half in color. So they're just trying all kinds of different things, and it's just very different from your usual put a camera over someone's shoulder and cut back and forth while they're talking type of shooting. They're doing interesting stuff to the level that I think Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul did the same thing. So yeah. It's that is one thing that I do enjoy watching. I annoy my girlfriend because she's watching the show and I'm like, oh, that's a really great camera angle right there. And she's like, shut up, I'm trying to watch this show.
Yeah. I mean, what else is popular on television? I know Walking Dead is like the most popular show right now. Using some metric. But what else what other dramas are people watching these days?
The crazy thing to me is how popular the network cop shows still are, and your NCIS and those shows are still incredibly popular. And I don't understand why, when there's like they're cheaply and quickly made, and there's so many more options now of better TV.
I agree. That's always puzzled me actually, but is it with the older demographic that likes these type of shows? Because I know my dad likes to watch most of these, but I don't know if any of my younger friends do. Is it just like is it like a comforting kind of older style, or what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think to a certain extent that's true. I'm sure they do touch the younger demo a little bit. I think these are really like Matt was saying, they're different kinds of ways of watching TV. I watch TV like I watch movies, phones off, I'm paying attention. A lot of people watch TV and those kind of shows specifically while they're doing something else. And I think those are shows very much where you don't have to focus on them. You're not going to miss an important plot point if you're not paying attention throughout the whole thing.
It's a good point. I remember when Matt, you and I were roommates, and like just like Law and Order would be on television,
Yeah.
and we didn't really like Law and Order, but it was just like a thing that would be on, and then we would use that to just like socialize in the main room.
Yeah, I do the same thing with House now. Like, I think me and my wife have watched the entirety of House like 4 times just because it's just stimulating enough. And I guess that's the thing is I have memorized all of the episodes of House, but I can still watch House because the episodes have that like very kind of rhythmic pace where it's very predictable, and you actually kind of want that predictability because you can stop paying attention and then come back into the show and know exactly where you are. So these boilerplate shows actually have a place. I just looked it up. NCIS is one of the top, or at least it was in 2011, was one of the top 5 shows in the over 50 demographic. So, and that makes some sense because I think it's mainly young people who are adopting all these new technologies that allow for the better options. And if you still have the same TV set that you had in 2000, and you haven't quite figured out that whole internet thing, then you're probably going to be watching stuff like NCIS because it's
if you miss an episode, you haven't missed anything. Like, it's just a different case,
right?
Yeah, it's true. But let's talk about House, because that's another show that frustrated me, even though it's been off the air for a while.
I have a confession to make. I've never watched that show.
You've never watched
any House?
I mean, I've seen like bits and pieces of episodes, but I've never sat down and watched that show from beginning to end.
I think the first season was good because he was such a different character, and the only thing that drove the show was just the intriguingness of the House character. But they explored him pretty quickly, and then there was nothing left to discover. There was never a real plot to the show. There was only the House character and kind of his supporting characters, and they only had a limited amount of depth to them ultimately.
Yeah, right. It's very frustrating because his arc, or his struggle is basically sort of multifaceted, but a lot of it has to do with being a drug addict. And I've watched this show so many times, I don't even remember how many times he gets clean and then goes back on drugs, and then gets clean and goes back on drugs, and goes to jail, so he has to get clean, and then goes back on drugs when he gets out of jail, and goes to a mental institution, and then gets out of the mental institution and goes back on drugs. And it's like, Jesus, just...
The other frustrating thing is, like, in certain seasons, you think they're going to do something different with the show, like when he was in the mental institution, and you're like, I'm really interested to like watch him more in the mental institution, like for a season, like maybe he's in the mental institution, but he's like messing with the other patients in ways that like drives the doctors crazy or something. And then he learns some lesson about himself. But like they have one season where he's been committed to a mental institution, and then he's back in the hospital, and they basically drop it. They just kind of like bring up a phone call with his psychiatrist every once in a while.
Yeah.
The same thing with prison. Like you could see it being really interesting, him being in prison, but they're like, no, one episode, and then we'll go back to the hospital.
Yeah. The character of House never changes or learns anything. And I guess that's what's interesting about it, is that there are certain episodes which in isolation are really excellent, actually. But when you're watching the show on like continuously, you see that it is very repetitive because that one episode that you thought was great actually loses a lot of its appeal when you see that this character has like been taught the same lesson 15 times in a row and has failed to learn it any of those times, and he's not going to learn it this time either. So yeah, it's quite a frustrating experience, actually.
Well, and I think that's another kind of old TV thing, and it only really exposes itself when you're binge watching, because these shows were not produced and made for you to be able to do that. But a lot of old TV shows were very structurally similar. Like, at this point in the hour, this certain thing's going to happen. to move on to the main plot of the show, and then there's going to be your B plot, and then things are going to get resolved by the 42-minute mark, whatever. And that's very reminiscent of old TV.
Yeah. Well, it's really a transition show, I think, because if you think about shows in the 90s, shows like ER, they were very much like each episode had its own story, but you were supposed to care enough about the characters that it would like
X-Files too. I really like X-Files. X-Files is a great example because they had what were explicitly Monster of the Week episodes where it would just be like, and this is the one with the sewer tapeworm alien thing, and then there were also episodes that were like advancing an overall story, and so the characters were growing and changing very, very slowly, and then there were episodes where you didn't really care that they were growing and changing because what was happening in the episode was sufficiently interesting.
I think the transition is more to shows that kind of string you along. Like 24 was an amazingly successful show, and I think the reason is because the formula that they had is that the whole season was around one event and like 1 hour after the next. So that it's like the perfect formula for continuing one storyline.
Yeah. But I both liked and hated that show.
I didn't. The like themes of the show did not appeal to me, but I understand why it was popular.
Well, in that show, like even season over season, it had the same structure where the first 12 hours, you think there's one enemy, and then the show pivots, and there's actually another enemy, and that's going to lead you to the end of the season. And that's literally every season. That's the part I stopped caring, is when they pivoted. And I'm like, okay, I don't care about this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the like revelations in the plot, the twists are like built on a house of cards.
Yeah.
But if you don't look at it too deeply, like it's got kind of the right pacing to it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's. We're running short on time here, and I think we could talk about TV forever. So let's talk about your favorite TV show. So. This is all time. This is if you're talking to a person who had never before watched TV in their life and you wanted them to watch one show before anything else, what would it be? Michael, since you're a guest, you may go first.
Oh, it's hard for me to choose something like that. I mean, the thing that stands out most recently is definitely Mr. Robot. I was just really engaged with that show, and I thought it had several levels of interesting things. But that's just because it was the most recent thing that I really liked. I don't know if I can say there's one show that I would watch by itself for forever.
Okay. Matt, what's your answer?
Oh, my answer would be Breaking Bad, which probably shouldn't come as a surprise to our loyal listeners. It's borderline perfect. I did say elsewhere in this show that it might sort of twirl around the drain for a little bit too long before it ends, but when it does end, it's extremely perfect. And it's I think the acting is one of the things that makes it transcendent for me, particularly Bryan Cranston, but really everyone involved, and just sort of like the vision behind the whole show, the fact that it was kind of driven by kind of a singular vision by this by Vince Gilligan, is that it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just I'd heard for years that it was great, and I had to watch it, and I just put it off because I was like, yeah, I know I'm gonna love it. Like everyone whose judgment I trust says that I'll love this, and then I just loved it, and it was great, and everyone should watch it.
Yeah, I was really late to it. I didn't watch the first 4 seasons until like that time between. Like I think most of the world caught up on Breaking Bad in the time between the first and second half of season 5. That's when it like blew up way bigger than it had ever been, and I was one of those people. I hadn't I mean, I didn't watch AMC TV shows. I didn't know that there was good TV on AMC. So I was late to the party, and I agree with you. I got like, it's one of those shows that it's so made throughout, and then there are just some episodes that are just like far and beyond some of the best things I've ever seen on television. I'm trying to remember the name of the episode, but the one where the fly is caught.
Yeah, I think it's just called The Fly.
Is it really just called The Fly? That episode is incredible. I've watched that one probably more times than I've watched anything else because there's just so much going on there, like under the surface, but also within the episode. And it's funny because it's your classic bottle episode, but done in the weird Breaking Bad twist way that is just dripping with meaning and metaphor, and it's so good.
Yeah, just the characters are so great. I mean, particularly Walter White, but really everyone has these really multidimensional characters where it's almost borderline inconsistent in the sense that, like, if you were just to watch two random episodes, you might think the character was behaving inconsistently, but what that's actually reflecting is that people are complicated and behave based on conflicting impulses. So what looks like inconsistency, when you sort of really understand the character, you see that they're pushed by different impulses at different times.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. It takes a huge amount of writing skill to convey something like that.
Michael, how far into it did you get before you gave up?
Like 2 episodes.
Okay. So
Like,
one of the things about Breaking Bad, and I didn't experience this myself, but most people said you have to get through the first season. I liked it from the beginning. There was just something about it that appealed to me. But a lot of people, like I had some friends that I recommended it to over and over again, and they were yelling at me all the way through the first season until they got to the second season, and they were like, "Oh, I get it now."
Yeah, I'm not willing to give a show that much like leeway. Like, I need a show to know what it's about, like in the first episode, and to hook me. Something like Orphan Black, where it just, like, the premise of the show is set up immediately, and you know, like, whether you're going to be hooked or not. And Breaking Bad just moved really slowly in the first 2 episodes.
That's fair.
That's interesting.
Although I'll say you're
actually,
missing out.
yeah, I'm not that I'm arguing, but I feel like the pilot or the first episode or whatever was just like this perfect movie of like self-contained like engagement, and I was like, wow, this I see where this is going, and I really care about this guy, and at that point in the story, you actually like Walter White and you want him to succeed. And I mean, as you probably know from osmosis, he actually just sort of becomes a monster gradually, which is also awesome in its own way. And then spawn all kinds of internet arguments about whether he's still a good guy or whatever, which apparently is a thing with Death Note too. People think Light is a good guy. But anyway.
Wow.
Theoretically, like, I feel like I should like the show, but I just was not captivated.
Would people finished Breaking Bad thinking Walter White was a good guy?
Oh yeah.
That's
fascinating. People are stupid.
So that's the same thing. Like,
it's easy. It's easy to confuse, like, thinking someone is a good guy with like emphasizing and liking someone. Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, people love, like, one of the things we love, and the reason why these police procedural shows are so popular is we love watching people that are just really good at their jobs. And, like, Walter White, even when he's a total monster, is just really good at basically everything he does. Like, he's brilliant. He's the best at making meth. And so people enjoy that. The thing that pissed me off the most about Breaking Bad is, like, the backlash against his wife. Like, how everyone hated her and, like, thought she was just nagging him and annoying. And
I thought her character was great. I loved her character.
I thought it was really great. She was super complicated, and like she was nagging him because he's fucking cooking meth in a trailer.
He's going insane.
Yeah. I mean, like,
he's like completely going insane, basically, and she has no idea most of this is happening, and yet her storyline still manages to be interesting. I mean, I think that's probably the coolest thing about it is, like, his storyline involves, like, wars with drug dealers, and hers is basically this just, like, domestic thing, and but you're just as riveted by her story.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the same people that think that he wasn't a bad guy that think that she was just a naggy bitch.
Yeah,
it's probably those same people, stupid people, who don't get the entire point of the show. But yeah, I know that's. I want to go watch it again right now. I really do. That would probably be number 2 on my list of best shows ever.
Well, number 1 be, Scott?
So nobody's going to be surprised by this that knows me because I talk about the show nonstop. My favorite show is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I say that and people are like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" This show, the thing about Buffy is, first of all, like we were talking about with X-Files and some of the 90s shows, it was one of the first shows that tried to serialize story, in that there were individual episodes, but there was an overall theme and arc to a season, and the characters changed and grew, and you cared about the characters. It's just, so the concept of Buffy is basically high school is hell. So it's a young girl growing up, and the pressures and the dealing with growing up is physically manifested in the fact that she has to fight demons and vampires and all this stuff. But it's just so well done. I just like, I love it so much. And the thing about Buffy that I think is different from Breaking Bad is because it's an older show, the bad episodes are like really bad. Like so Buffy has like really low lows, but it has like really high highs. And there are episodes in there that are still some of my favorite episodes of TV and will always be my favorite episodes of television. And I love the characters. I think everyone needs to give the show a shot and spend some time with it. And I know it's like a huge time commitment because it's 7 seasons of 22 episodes each, which especially nowadays is an enormous amount of time comparatively to all the other TV out there. But I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, I can see that. It never appealed to me just because I found the kind of snarky dialogue annoying, but I see what you mean about I appreciate the sort of thing, the sort of struggles of the teenager being manifested as these monsters, and it was an appealing show.
Yeah, and the metaphors, I think they're there, and if you're paying attention, you can pick up on them, but they're never like shoving them in your face. And each one, like each season has its distinct theme that it's dealing with, and the big bad of the season always kind of manifests itself into that theme.
It may have been one of the first shows that kind of took something that ridiculous seriously as well. Like it never acted like this was kind of a weird situation.
Yeah,
it just kind of like accepted.
I mean,
like all the vampires and everything.
There's definitely a campy quality to it, especially the first season. It was never a show that had a lot of money, so the effects are terrible. But it's like, the thing I always say to people is Buffy is not about the monsters. That's not what the show is about. You don't need the monster to look like super great effects for the point of everything to land. It's about the struggles with these characters. It's about this woman learning to grow up and become a different person. And it's just so well done. And it's like, I don't know. Like I said, there are seasons I don't like as much. The first season is not very good. It was a mid-season replacement. It was only 12 episodes long, and they were still trying to find their legs. But in season 2, it really starts clicking, and the show figures out what it wants to be, and it's just great. People need to watch the show. There's a video that I'm going to link in the show notes, because someone who feels very similar to me got tired of having the same fight and explanation anytime he mentioned he likes the show. So he made this like 6-minute video that just explains why the show is great. And I've gotten tired of having the same argument with people. So whenever they say it, I just link them to this video. Say, go check this out. If you don't want to watch it after this, fine. But
I feel like I'm definitely more likely to give Buffy a try now that I can probably get it on some kind of streaming service.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Maybe.
And Hulu, I think. It's everywhere.
Because I think a show like this, you really all that needs to happen is you need to buy into the characters, and once you have, then it's just going to keep you watching.
Absolutely. And you're
Yeah,
gonna, and you're,
I've
if you try, you're gonna
yeah.
come to me and say, Scott, the first season of this show is terrible, and I'm gonna say, yeah, you're kind of right. Here, there's like 5 episodes, or like there's 4, I think, episodes you need to watch to understand the plot enough to know what happens in the next seasons. But even I like the bad episodes because it does slightly further the characters and endear them to you a little bit more. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I liked. I think I just thought of Firefly as kind of like the better version of a Joss Whedon show. He sort of worked out like sort of how a show needs to be by that point.
Yeah, and I would say Firefly came out around, I think, season 5 of Buffy, which is my favorite season. So I think he was really hitting his stride as far as knowing what works in TV and doesn't.
It's interesting your comment about sort of the metaphorical usage of Buffy reminded me that I was reading this week that the guy who wrote Worm is actually like at least talking to television people. That's not to say that's gone anywhere, but it's an interesting thought that
it's going to become a WB show, and you're going to regret this ever happening.
That's what Buffy was.
I'm actually very skeptical that Worm would make a good TV series, just because my prior probability that any given TV show is going to be good is pretty low. And also apparently they made a TV show out of The Magicians, and of course it's terrible. I haven't tried to watch it because
I will say that
it looks terrible.
That CW has been doing really good work. It's not WB anymore, Michael. WB doesn't exist. It's the CW.
Yeah, CW.
They've been doing some really great work in shows lately.
Okay.
Their version of The Flash is actually really great. Even though I never really liked the character, there's just something about the show I really like. It's just like endearing. And there's another show that we've talked about on here, or I've mentioned on here, called The 100. Or I think it's The 100. It's like a sci-fi psychological type show in the vein of Battlestar Galactica. I've finally caught up on that now, and while I don't like this season as much, the second season I thought was really great.
Yeah, that's one thing that we haven't pointed out explicitly, but we sort of may have pointed out obliquely, is that the special effects and really everything about TV has gotten so vastly better. Like I mean, obviously stuff like Game of Thrones looks great, and you have these dragons and castles and everything, but even sort of what you think of as being just like a smaller show, like I don't know, there's all these superhero shows. These obviously have like a fairly advanced amount of special effects to make them work, and you compare that against something like Quantum Leap or whatever, where
it's definitely
twice an episode you got like a different light filter on the film or whatever. So
and it's still not perfect. It's still never going to be TV level or movie level on these kind of shows. Like the CW show is never going to have a budget that Game of Thrones has. But yeah, it's definitely much better. I mean, the effect of the Flash running is done really well. There's some super villains in it he fights that are done really well. There was a shark guy in this season, which I love. I love the campy goofiness of the Flash. I just really like it.
I haven't seen The Flash. I saw an episode of The Green Arrow and thought it was horrid.
I never got into The Green Arrow.
Yeah.
I heard there was only really one good season of that.
Okay.
But like the things with the Flash, even the Flash, sometimes the dialogue you have to kind of roll your eyes at and move past, because sometimes the dialogue is just bad. But there's something good there still. The same with the Supergirl show on I think it's CBS. I love that show. I think that show captures what Superman is better than any Superman movie made in the last 20 years.
Yeah, it seems like it doesn't take itself as quite as seriously as Superman does now.
And I mean, like, the show, I feel like every episode of the show starts with, like, Supergirl just, like, saving random people. Like, literally one started with her, like, helping a girl getting bullied by other girls. And it's like that's the small things that Superman does is what makes him great, not these big, huge battles. But we can get into that next week when we talk about how much we liked or hated Batman versus Superman.
Hooray!
And Matt, I think what we're going to do for that is we're going to have a non-spoiler section, and then a spoiler section if you really are concerned about being spoiled in that movie.
Okay.
Or you could just find a way to go see it.
I'm not too concerned about being spoiled for this movie, I'm not going to lie.
All right. I think that's all we have for this week. I think we did have some recommendations, but we're going pretty late here, so we can save those for next week.
Sounds good.
Cool.
So join us next week where we pick apart Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Michael, thanks for joining us here.
Oh, you're mighty welcome.
And I guess you'll be back next week because you're going to see that movie too, right? So I guess
I will.
I guess we're forced to have you. Bummer. Okay.
I'll bite the speeding bullet.
All right.
Watch the movie.
So everyone out there listening,
which will be slower than a locomotive.
Okay. It's fast.
In
faster.
plot movement.
Oh, I get it. You're trying to do a thing. It's not working.
I'm doing a thing.
It's not working.
All right.
All right. If you could like, favorite, subscribe, share, whatever this podcast, we would love that. We're trying to reach more and more people. Matt, Twitter me.
Twitter at MORIDNIA. I don't even know how to spell it anymore.
It's there. It'll be below.
You'll see it. You'll see it. You won't be able to help seeing it. You'll see it in your dreams.
I am at Scott Daly 85. That's DALY. Our website Twitter is at Daily Planet Films. And all of our writing, although not lately because I've been slacking, is found at dailyplanetfilms.com. All right. Thanks again, Michael, and we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
I'm going to cut that part out.
Podcast is over. It's done. We hope you all had some fun. Go back to your work or your school. Maybe the gym. Hey, that's cool. Regardless, just go away. But please come back next Friday. There'll be a brand new podcast.